let me first start by saying that, actually this year, this month, we are celebrating 70 years of diplomatic relations between Sri Lanka and Norway. In 1950, in October 1950, we actually we made a decision to establish bilateral diplomatic relations with Sri Lanka. At that time, it was covered from our embassy in New Delhi. Then in 1976, we established a development office here with a resident representative. And then in 1996, we opened a full-fledged embassy. So it makes me very happy also to have this interview with you and tell you that this year we're celebrating our 70 years. And I think currently we have of course been having an engagement with Sri Lanka over a long time, mainly first of all focusing on the fisheries sectors, which was the start of our the content of our bilateral relations. Then we have developed it broader into to what we today see as some of the pillars of our bilateral relationship, which is the fisheries sector. We also do a lot on job creation, business development. We do a lot on women's empowerment. And we also talk with the ICT sector on cooperating with them. And of course also civil society and human rights issues. Well, as I mentioned earlier, the whole fisheries sector engagement started with the Saino project. I think many Sri Lankans are very well aware, and it's very known to very many Sri Lankans. From there, we have developed our cooperations into many directions when it comes to the fisheries sector. The main part today is twofold. There is a cooperation with the Ministry of Fisheries, which is on developing a strategy for fisheries policy as well as aquaculture. Now that has ended, and we are looking into how we can continue that further. Then there is a second engagement, which is more on the technical side, which is mainly the two fisheries institutions working together from Norway and Sri Lankan side. From Norway, it's the Institute of Marine Research, and in Sri Lanka, it's NARA. That's a technical cooperation on assembling data on the fisheries resources. Then, of course, part of our fisheries engagement is also to explore possibilities for business, look into boat building. We have a Norwegian company building boats here today, and as well as looking into the possibilities of fish farming. And the future of our cooperation. Well, currently, we have experienced over the last few years an increased interest for Sri Lanka from Norwegian side. We have had a number of high-level bilateral visits over the past few years. We have also seen that there has been an increased people-to-people contact. We have seen a bigger number of Norwegian tourists coming to Sri Lanka. And also from our side, we are looking more into how to turn from purely development cooperation into getting bigger investments done in Sri Lanka, and also enable the business community in Norway to take more interest in Sri Lanka. Well, I think Sri Lanka is a country with a huge potential when it comes to very many sectors. And I think from a Norwegian side, we are looking into possibilities where we have already an interest and a competence. We together with Sri Lanka, we share many mutual interests. One of them being the oceans. Blue economy is a huge interest also from Norwegian side. So we were looking into the maritime sector as well. We're looking into the renewable energy sector, and of course, as I mentioned already, the fishery sector. And I think those are areas where Sri Lanka still can develop a lot more, and where we would be interested to cooperate with Sri Lanka. Well, from our side, we are doing a project together with the University of Jaffna, which cooperates with a university in Norway on the clean energy sector. One part of the project is to develop better knowledge, more competence at the university on the clean energy technology. So it is based on research, and it's based on encouraging more students to take on studies within the clean energy sector or technology. The other part of the cooperation is, has been a more practical one, where we've put together a floating solar panel in a water tank up at in connection with the university premises. It has been done together with a Norwegian investor in solar. It's called REC Solar, and of course money from Innovation Norway office. The main idea is to showcase the possibility of using floating solar as a mean to get more clean energy in Sri Lanka. And we hope that this also would help more investments in the sector. It has been a big success. It turns out that not the level of energy, what you say, that it turns out that you get a lot more out of these panels, which is not a very big installation, than actually planned for. And of course the university, being part of it, can also study the effect of the solar panel and increase their competence and knowledge more. Well, we are encouraging the University of Sri Lanka, the University of Jaffna, to make an outreach to other universities, and also to talk to the government to showcase their results. A good question. Actually, the Norwegian sovereign fund, or we call it the Norwegian Global Pension Fund. That is, I think, more the correct name, but it's one of the largest investment funds in the world. And they have started investing in Sri Lanka in 2015. So already for 5 years there has been investment from the fund. And what we've seen, the latest numbers are from 2019. There has been a doubling of the investment. So today it's approximately $114 million and the investment is made in approximately 20 Sri Lankan companies. It's mainly an investment in the stocks. And they are, of course, not a big percentage, but it's still, in my view, it's an expression of the confidence that this fund has in the Sri Lankan economy. Well, I think Sri Lanka's plans on the oil and gas sector are at the very beginning, and we of course are following this as well. There has been some interest from Norwegian companies. There has also been a study done by the Norwegian oil company Equinor. At this stage, there is no such engagement. I think they're very much waiting, to see how things are going to be planned out from the government side on their strategizing on the oil and gas. And of course, this is mainly up to the private sector to get engaged. But we as an embassy are following the developments and very much looking forward to see what the Sri Lankan government will plan ahead. Well, any kind of request from the government will be closely followed up from our side. I think at this stage we look at what has been done earlier. We also know that we are not the only country interested in this sector in Sri Lanka. There are, other neighboring countries that also look at Sri Lanka's potential, and we will take it from there. I think, for the sake of the history, I think it's important to underline that Norway's role as a facilitator during the peace process was upon invitation from both the government of Sri Lanka and from the LTTE. So it was not something that Norway proposed, but it was something that we were asked to do. I think, then of course, one of the reasons for why we were asked is probably also we were a small country, we're far away, and of course we had already some experience in brokering peace. I mean, with the Oslo Accords in the Middle East in 1992. I think that also kind of brought Norway up as an interesting country to ask. During the Norwegians' engagement, I think we have to remember that between 2002 and up to 2004, there was a huge international support for finding a solution in Sri Lanka. And during that time, of course, Norway was acting only upon instructions from the two parties. We were never part of the decision making. That is solely what those two parties decided upon. I think that is part of being a facilitator, is to go between the two parties. But in the end, the decision lies with the two parties. Well, if you're talking about, the new UNHCR process, I mean, Norway today is not a member of the core group, nor are we a member of the Human Rights Council. But we do, of course, follow the work done in the council very closely. And it's also important to underline that, we do share the concerns that have been raised when it comes, to the commitments and what we, and where we are at today. Norway has expressed, the need to move on these issues, and of course, Sri Lanka also recently decided not to co-sponsor the resolution any longer, and that is where we are at today. And then of course, that the resolution is up for discussion in March. Yes. And we will have to also see what the government comes out with on that issue. No, we have seen it, and at the moment Sri Lanka withdrew their. Well, it didn't withdraw from the resolution, first of all. It withdrew from the co-sponsoring of the resolution. And the resolution stands until March next year. I think in between, we are waiting for the government to come forward with how they want to engage further on this, and how they intend to also engage with the international, with the UN, with the international community. And we, of course, in our discussions or dialogue meetings with the government, we also, put forward that we are wanting to have a dialogue with them on this matter. So far, we are waiting to see. I think with the current situation with the COVID and with the elections, it has not so far been said anything on the way forward. So we are waiting that. Norway has actually contributed a lot to the fight of COVID in the global funds. And Sri Lanka has been has been receiving a lot of funding over the UN funds for the fighting of the COVID. So I think that is one part where Norway and Sri Lanka, where Norway has supported Sri Lanka. Then of course we have seen, and this is a bit technical, but there has been also a project on how to trace COVID. Or not only COVID, but diseases, and the development of this tool has been financed by Norway, and Sri Lanka has been one of the main recipients or main parties in this development of this tool. And we see today that because Sri Lanka, and this is a couple of years back, this has already been a cooperation between health, health sectors. And we see today that Sri Lanka has benefited a lot from that partnership, and very early on managed to trace a lot of the COVID cases in the country with the help of this tool that has been developed together with Norwegian resources. So we're very happy in that sense. Norway has a lot of experience in dealing with how to manage with resources in the ocean. One of them being fish. As you know, it's extremely important to make sure that your resources in the water are sustainable. But quite often you have to agree with neighboring countries on how you together should contribute and how to resolve those issues. In that sense, Norway has a lot of experience. As so far, we have not received any requests from Sri Lankan nor Indian government to assist on this matter. But as I said, we do have a certain amount of expertise in this field, if there ever should be an interest expressed. Want to add that Norway also does a lot on women empowerment, and in particular in the sector of business, we have been supporting Slascom on work on how to promote women technopreneurs, which we believe is a very good way to make women engage more in the technical sectors, in the technical ICT sector in particular. I think Norwegian experience in this matter, I mean, talking about fisheries and oil, Norway also has a lot of, good, how can I say it? We have a lot, we've been working a lot on how to include women in in the working world. Norway today has a high percentage of women participation. I think it's extremely important to say that women's participation in working life adds more to the GDP than oil and gas does. So for us, in the discussion with Sri Lankan organizations and also with the government, and of course through our bilateral projects, we emphasize the need to include, women all over. But you do have, number one, you have a very high number of female participation in education. You also have a very high number of women with a higher, education, not only, the basic, the primary or the secondary education, but very many women in Sri Lanka have completed university education. So on that level, you are very well placed. I think also we see very many women engaging in work sector, and very many women also take on leadership roles. We see it in public sector, and we also see that there is a keen interest for women in private sector as well. What we must make sure is, to keep women in the sector, to keep women working. And part of the Norwegian experience is that you also need to work on things, that has to do with people's lives. It has to do with children, making sure that you get the maternity leave, making sure also that that you are able to both have a working life and a family life, and have a more flexible approach to this. In that sense, I think there is many lessons learned from the Norwegian side that we will be more than happy to share, and that we do share, when it comes to our engagement with the Sri Lankan side.